Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of Lysias, the work on the murder of Eratosthenes. And I'm just reading through this, and we got up to section 11. So, pro iontos de tu chronu o Andres, hekon min aprostoketos ex agru. Metadetodepnon ton paidion eboe kai eduskolainin hypotes therapines epitedes lupumenon hinatauta poie. So we get a genitive absolute from prohiemi. So as time passed by, O gentlemen, now we get a men and a balancing debt here. So I came unexpectedly. It's pros and the docio root. So unexpectedly, adverb, ex agro, literally from the field, but possibly from the farm. Agros, particularly in later Greek, is often used in the sense of the farm. So he may have been either a worker or he may have been a farmer. But in either case, he's stressing the fact that he's not a city layabout. He's actually a worker, so he's coming from the farm. But after dinner, the child eboa began to cry, imperfect from boao, and edus kalinen. So dus kalino, something like it was fretful or peevish. Being grieved, passive from lupio, epitedes, on purpose. So purposely, this is an adverb here, purposely being grieved by the servant girl, in order that, that it might do these things, that is, that the child would start crying out. The point here is, I think he's trying to make, is that the servant was making the child cry to cover up the noise of those within, because he says in the next bit, hoga anthropos endon ein, for the man was inside. Husteron gar hapante eputhomein, for I perceived from punthanamai all these things, husteron later on. Kai ego ten gunaika ap ianai ekeliuon kai dunai to paidio ton tithon hina pausetai klaon. And so I bid my wife to go off and to give her breast to the baby, in order that it might cease. And then klaon, this is from clio, it's a slightly different spelling, it's a neuter participle, so it's topaidion. So in order that it might cease weeping, might cease crying, neuter participle from clio. Heideton proton uk aethelin, hos an as mene me hieraquia, hekonta diachronu. But she, tomen proton, at first, and then the balancing of that's going to be epede de. So she at first did not want to. And then we get hos here plus a participle. It's almost like pretending that she had seen, this is a feminine participle from horao, so pretending almost that she had literally seen me happily, that is, that she was happy to see me. Hey conta, that's a accusative participle agreeing with me, having come diachronu after such a long time. Presumably he's only been there during the day. Epede de, and that's balancing the men up here. But when I, or gizdoman, when I began, it's an imperfect, so it's that inceptive, I began to become angry, and I was telling her, apenai, to go off, then Ephe, she says, hina suge peres entarthaten paidiscain. So it's a bit elliptic here. You have to supply something like, "You're just saying that," she said, "in order that you, in fact, might might try out, make an attempt on, it's almost try your luck, entartha here on the slave girl, the paidiscain. Kai proteron de methuon hail kesauten," and previously methuon, drunk, this is a participle from methuo, drunk, hail kes, this is imperfect from helko, to drag, so you were dragging her about. You were, I think just dragging her about. So, just to do that bit again, so when I became angry, I began to be angry, and I bid her to go off. She said, "Understand, you're just saying that in order that you, in fact, might try your luck," we'd say in English, "on the slave girl here. Also, previously, when you were drunk, you dragged her about. Cargo men egelon ekene de anastasakai epiusa prostithe siten thuran prospoiumene paisdain kaitain klein af helkatai." Now we get another men, so we look for the de, there it is there, cargo for kai ego, and I, for my part, I began to laugh, an imperfect again from gelao, an alpha contract verb, so I began to laugh, but she, Anastasa, she standing up and going off, now prostithesi, well, she placed the door to, or pulled the door to, in other words, she shut, but this is a present, so a historic present here. So she shut the door, prospoiumene, well, something like pretending, I think, that verb, pretending paisdain, to muck about, to fool about, and af helkatai tain klein. Klein is an accusative from klais, meaning a key. Af helkatai, she dragged she dragged the bolt or the key. In other words, she locked the door. Now from the outside, so that her husband was locked inside. Remember that he's up in the women's quarters. That's where her husband was now sleeping. And the women's quarters, the lock would have been on the outside, not the inside. So she pretends to make a joke of it all, and she locks the door, but from the outside, so he's stuck inside. She's doing this so he claims that she can smuggle out the boyfriend. Cargo, two-tone uden, enthumumenos, udi hupot not own, kathudon asmenos, hakon ex agru. And I, enthumiamai is thinking, so just thinking nothing of these things, and not hupanotio, not having it in my mind, so perhaps not suspecting, I went to sleep asmenos, happily, asmenos, in a happy mood, perhaps, because it is nominative here. So I went to sleep in a happy mood, having come, participle, from the farm. So he's probably tired from work. Epede de ein pros hemeran hekenekene kaiten thuran anioxen. But when it was to the day, so when it was day, she came and she opened the door. Now this is this beautiful form which goes on into later Greek. In fact, it's a double augment. In later Greek, in the New Testament and the Septuagint, you often get a triple augment with this verb. It's a crazy verb. So it's from an oigo, originally oignumi, and then it becomes anoigo. And you get a normal augment from the oi, then you get a double or a second augment. So the verb had already been mucked around with even back in the 5th and 4th centuries, and then it gets morphed even further in later Greek. So anyway, so she came and she opened the door. Remember, he's been locked inside all night. Eruomenu demu ti hai thurai nuktor psophoien. Ephasketon luknon apo spesthenai ton paratopaidio. Epe to ekton gaitonon enapsasthai. Now, genitive absolute here. When I asking, so this is that eremai. So when I asked why the doors, this is from Sophio, it means to make a noise. So it was making a noise, nuktor adverbial by night. So when I asked her why the doors were making such a noise during the night, Ephaske, now this is a lovely form. Fasco, it's formed from the same root as fami, so that's the far root. And then it's got this iterative sk, and this is in the imperfect. And it's a verb used when someone claims something that may or may not be true. And so it's often best to translate it as claim, because that's got similar sense in English. Or to maintain, or to claim. So she claimed that the luknon, the lamp, apospesthenai. This is from apospenumi, to be quenched, and this is the aorist passive infinitive here. So she claimed that the lamp had gone out, had been quenched, the one that was beside the child. Eta, and then in apsasthai, she had relit it, ekton gaitonon, well, from the neighbour's one, from that of the neighbours. So she'd gone next door to get a light. Esiopone ego kaitauta hutos ekain hegumain. And I, this is from siopao, this is the imperfect, I was silent, and hegomen, I thought, these things, now this is echo plus the adverb, to be thus. So I was silent and I thought, oh well, that's just what happened. Edoxa demoi o andres top prosopon difficult verb here, epsimutheosthai. And this is a verb meaning, it's from psimutheoo, it's an omicron contract verb. It means to put on makeup, and here it has the sense of to have a face made up. The word psimutheon refers to the white lead which was used as a cosmetic by women. Probably not particularly good for them if it's a lead-based cosmetic, but that's what it was. So, for it seemed to me, gentlemen, that her face, or perhaps she seemed to me to have made up her face. So she's perhaps not necessarily impersonal, or if it is impersonal, it seemed to me, gentlemen, her face to have been made up. If it's passive, or perhaps if it's middle, to have made up her face. Now we get a genitive absolute, to adelphu teth neotos. This is from Thanesco. Her brother having died, upo triaconthemeras, not yet 30 days. Now 30 days was the usual mourning time, or period of mourning in Athens at the time. So he's a bit suspicious that she's all dolled up when her brother's has died and it hasn't passed the 30-day period. Homos de oude hutos oudin apon peri to pragmatos exelthon oikomen exosiope. Homos, but nevertheless, oude hutos, not even so. This is quite colloquial here. and probably purposely colloquial, that he wants to have this sense that he's a pretty easygoing sort of guy. So nevertheless, not even then, having said nothing regarding the situation, the pragma, having gone outside, I went out in silence. So having gone out, I departed in silence. Metatauta o andres, chronometaxu, diaginomenu, kai emu polu apo lele menu, tone emautu kakone, prosergotai moi tis presbutos anthropos. And I'll just hold it there. So after these things, gentlemen, now the genitive absolute again, so time passing in between, literally. So it's something like a period of time having passed in between. Another genitive absolute, and me being, well, literally left behind, so it's hence unaware, I think. Me being unaware of my own troubles. Tis presbutis anthropos. This presbutis tells us that it's a woman, an older woman. Anthropos just means a human being, so we'd say here perhaps a certain elderly woman, prosergotai, historic present, approaches me. Hypogunikos, hypopemphthesa, henikainos emoikuen, hos ego husteron he kuon. So so this is the old woman, having been sent secretly. Now this is the hupo. When you've got hupo in a compound, it can have the sense of secretly. So having been, this is an aorist passive feminine participle here, having been sent secretly by a woman who that man, that's Eratosthenes, emoikuen, was having an affair with, had committed adultery with, as I afterwards heard. So as I heard afterwards. He keeps emphasising all the way through this his naivety. I found all these things out much later. I had no idea what was going on. I was very naive. I believed what my wife said and so on. So as I heard later on, aute de and she, aute de orgidzomene kai adkes thy nomidson Zeusa, hotiuketi homoios ephoita parauten, ephulaten heos ex uren hoti iae ton aition. But she, being angry, and nomid Zeus, so these are all feminine participles, considering that she had been wronged, passive infinitive from abdicio. So she being cranky and thinking that she'd been hard done by, that she'd been wronged, because no longer homoios in the same way, ephoita, this is from phoitao, it means to frequent. So he was no longer frequenting parautein, or perhaps frequently coming to her, homoios in the same way. So because of all that, Fullerton, she was keeping guard, heos, until ex heoren, from ex heurisco, until she discovered whatever aa optative might be to ition, the reason. And that is the next little instalment of sections, and I'll continue this in a later recording.